I've been guilty of showing up to morning classes and lunchtime classes at random gyms over the years, thinking, this is going to be chill. And then you slap hands with someone and they put it on and you're like, whoa, it's a lunchtime class.
What are we doing?
I thought we were taking it easy. They're like, no, I'm training.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. In the blue corner, we have Joseph, the Natural Worthington. In the corner with the guy wearing the hat, JT Tenacity. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Just got inspired.
Like that.
Yeah. Just listening to stuff about Bruce Buffer getting a punch on in the elevator. Just commentators, their family. It's quite interesting.
Oh, wow.
It's cool. That guy can throw hands.
Can he?
Yeah.
He's a
weapon.
I really like Bruce Buffer.
He's an icon. Yeah, there's more to him than it would seem.
I hope no sexual allegations get made against him.
No, the only thing that he's a criminal of is fashion, because his suits are the worst.
Yeah, but they're unique.
They're gaudy. They're the worst.
Gaudy as
But hey, he's a star. Good on him. Guys, what time of the day do you train? What tribe are you? Are you the morning crew? Are you a lunchtime person? Lunchtime warrior? Or are you a nighttime crusader? And we were talking about this because Joe was saying, some people just don't have a choice. But I think there is pros and cons to different times of the day, and maybe given the opportunity, training at a different time of the day might give you a different benefit.
Yeah.
So I want to go first to our morning crew, because I believe that there's a few different people in the morning crew. And typically it's people just trying to get it in before work because they have no other time in the day. My experience has been, it's not
a lot of parents.
It's not hard rolls. People are coming in. It's almost like morning yoga. They're just getting the blood circulating. But there's actually not a lot of learning going on. Like, people are like half asleep. There's probably only one person in there who's actually really awake, and they're not even the instructor.
Yep.
They've either punched a bunch of coffee. They've already had their ice baths. They ran there. They're like, let's go. They're probably a white belt. And then the rest of the crew is just using the class to wake up. And it's actually a awesome way to start the day. If you can eat the early start, the post-morning roll is a good vibe. You're starting the day on such a good vibe.
Yeah. And I mean, whether you're training jiu-jitsu or you're doing gym stuff in the morning, you get that benefit through the whole day.
It just flows on.
Of all those endorphins and that like sort of pride point where you're like, yeah, I trained today.
I got it done.
I did that little struggle.
Yeah.
Everything's better. Your relationships, your productivity, it all goes higher.
There's so many memes about morning people mocking non-morning people. Like, it's got like a bunch of, I think it's like taken from a comedy vampire series, and they're all like wearing cravats and wigs and kind of 15th century French shit. And there's like four of them. And they're all like looking real snobby, and they're like how 6 a.m. crew looks at everybody else who doesn't train in the morning. But the truth is, like, I am that kind of get up early kind of guy. I had found that most people I'd rolled with in the morning were maybe slightly older, and they had jobs.
A lot of parents.
And there was no...
20-year-olds don't need to train in the morning.
No. I mean, if they're keen, they can. But it was interesting because...
It'll be one of the 3 sessions they do that day.
Exactly. Just got to get it in. First one, checked off. The only downside, or the major downside I found from training in the morning, was I didn't learn that much.
Right.
It was good for getting the gears turning over, but even though the instructor's there, they teach the lesson, and I've taught that many morning classes, I found my morning crew, the retention was not great.
Right.
I would show a technique on Monday. By the time we got to Friday, people were still like, even though there was progressions and different things around it, people were not keeping any of it.
Yeah, right.
Like, they got their jiu-jitsu in, but maybe the learning wasn't.
Yeah, I would say that the general energy of a morning session is more kind of more sporting.
Oh, yeah.
If you would say, let's get together and like play a couple
Right.
rounds, it's like, it's that kind of thing. Whereas, you contrast to an evening thing where it can be often more competitive.
Very intense.
Yeah. I got a, exception, and I've mentioned them before, the guys at Balmain that I have done a few morning sessions with. They cram a huge amount in. There's tough rolls.
But
and
what time? Is that like
6?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awful. Horrific.
Please describe the horrors.
And it's also like they're also very cerebral about it. Like, okay, today we're working on this, and who's been workshopping that, and what problems have you had? Okay, let's look at this little detail, and it's.
So do you think that's a gym culture thing then?
Yeah, I think they are a bit of an exception because my exposure to mornings otherwise has been a little bit more, aforementioned.
Yeah, more good vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's a social component because sometimes people who work in the morning, maybe they own their own business, so their start times, they don't have to rush out. So maybe like, who wants to get a coffee after? There could be a social component to it if you're the kind of person who has the liberty to do that kind of thing.
Here's another interesting observation of people that train in the morning because, you could, I'm sure there's people out there that are like, fuck you, I train super hard in the morning. And,
sure.
Of course, people do. I'm sure you do. But
it's called being condescending.
But
heard of it?
This episode is brought to you by Parry Athletics, the exclusive apparel sponsor of the Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. We've been working with these guys for quite some time now. We absolutely love the company. We love their gear, both for training and also just looking slick off the mats. They got excellent no-gi wears, shorts, t-shirts, all that cool stuff. If you want to get yourself into some Parry clothes or you want to rock the Bulletproof for BJJ exclusive merch, you got to go through Parry, go to parryathletics.com and use the code Bulletproof20 to get 20% off your order. They ship internationally. But there's an argument that people train, like in the evening, classes are longer, there's more people there, it's usually harder sessions. However, you have control of the morning. Yeah. If you can train in the morning, your chances of being consistent over a long period of time are probably the highest they can be.
Definitely.
Whereas the evenings we have less control over because shit comes up during the day. You got to stay back at work.
Of course.
Kid got sick.
Meetings.
Yeah, like you just had to do something. Fuck, couldn't make it in. I was planning to go tonight, but I didn't get there. So even though we might be in a very general way saying mornings are sometimes a little bit easier, you do see morning people like get really good because it's every week.
Boom, boom,
week
boom.
in, week out. There's
Nothing's
very little
in the
inconsistency.
The thing that makes mornings harder, and we've talked about this, is the nutrition component. It's like not having food in your tummy. The system's not warmed up. You barely probably drank your water. Physically, it can be very demanding, depending on how organized you are.
Yep.
I have found intensity-wise, my best intensity, even though I've had some really hard night sessions, my best intensity is generated kind of mid to late morning or lunchtime.
Yeah,
for me. Because, there's water in the system, food in the system, caffeine in the system. I'm at my best to roll as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And generally that's only the domain of, maybe this is like a fourth slot that people don't talk about, which is kind of the pros. They're training at 10 in the morning because they don't do anything else. And that would count as a morning session, but that's not your 6 a.m. crew. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's like a daytime sesh.
Daytime session, they're beautiful if you can get it. That's classically the realm of the open mat.
Yeah.
At 9, 10 a.m., run it through to lunch. It's a good vibe if you can get it. But if we're talking about weekday hustle, lunchtimes, because there's some people out there, maybe they work close to their gym.
Yeah.
That's the only time they can get it.
Suit goes off, gi goes on.
Let's bang. It's usually a pretty short class.
Similar thing to the morning, right? It's like we don't have a lot of time. Let's get into it, get a couple rounds.
Boom.
Out you go.
Get up.
Yeah.
And that can be great too. That can be a really good energy, but also it could fuck you up. Here's how. You're a person, a professional, and you're like, yeah, I just want to get some rounds in. I'm not here to fight to the death. And then you've got some mat rat crew who've just been on there since the morning. And they're like, we're trying to get our second training session in. And they're there to bang it out. And you get kicked in the face and you break your nose, or you get because it can happen. I've seen this, right?
That can happen at any point.
But having it in the middle of your workday, that can be problematic, right? At the end of the day, it's kind of like, all right, I guess we're going to go to emergency or whatever. But middle of the day, it's like, oh, sorry, boss, can't go finish that job, whatever it might be. I'm in emergency. I got kicked in the face by a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's like, what the you're not getting fired, but that's an inconvenience.
Suboptimal.
I believe that the lunchtime class is all about convenience. That's my take on it.
Yeah, again, I think that those sessions, generally are often the domain of like, that's my only slot.
So that's when I do it.
Yeah, and like if you if you live in the suburbs and you work in the city,
Yep.
and your gym is in the city, then it kind of makes sense that like lunchtime is probably going to be the only time you could go there. You wouldn't go back home and then drive back to the city, right?
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
But what I found actually, like Absolute MMA in the city, their lunchtime class pumped. Like the location was primo for that because it was right in the central business district. People get confused when I say CBD. They're like, the oil? The gummies? I'm like, no, central business district, where all the buildings are.
Downtown for our American listeners.
Downtown, where all the roads are.
I can't believe you hadn't just adopted downtown since of this, you know?
Oh, because us being American podcasters.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately not. I'll work on it. Sorry, friends. So straight out the Jex.
Just a point there though. And I really got to reiterate this. I've been guilty of showing up to morning classes and lunchtime classes at random gyms over the years, thinking, this is going to be chill. And then you slap hands with someone and they put it on and you're like, whoa, it's a lunchtime class.
What are we doing?
I thought we were taking it easy. They're like, no, I'm training.
This is my time.
And you're like, bit of a misconception.
Sure.
And I think that's very important to mention. And you do also get at a lot of those sessions, you get people that have been there. I don't know what it is, but they've
established.
They've been there for a long time. They're maybe not trying to, maybe they're at purple belt, brown. They're not trying to like do the evening hustle. And they're like, look, I've settled into this because it's a bit more balanced for my lifestyle, but I will still fuck you up.
I will kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And respect to that.
Absolutely.
But what I see as a bit of a drawback on the lunchtime, even though there's so many pros, there's less time to work on your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So yes, they do a technique, you practice the technique, you roll, but then you straight on to the next thing. I feel the thing that's really missing with the lunchtime class now, maybe if you get a chance to hang out, that's cool. But what I notice is people are like off the mats, in the showers, bang, 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 get the fuck out.
Yeah, you don't have much free time.
There's no afterwards like, oh, yo, hey, what did you do there? And I think that there's a huge value in jiu-jitsu in the kind of post-class breakdown or the just the
bit of workshopping,
post-training chat,
troubleshooting.
There's insight there.
Yeah.
And that is totally missed. Like I feel, at least from my experience, and I've trained at a lot of different gyms, that 10 minutes after class where someone could be like, hey man, can you show me this? Or you could be like, hey, what did you do there? That can unlock so much of your knowledge or your thinking about jiu-jitsu. Whereas if you just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and you're out, you miss it.
Yeah.
And so I think that even though there may be people out there who are like, I'm just trying to get it in, respect, you may be missing out to a certain extent.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But then we turn to the brotherhood of the night, sisterhood also. Night training is just generally where most people can get it, right? You'd say night classes are the biggest. Generally speaking.
Yeah, generally the biggest. Yeah, busy, often longer.
Yes.
Like your night class might be the 90-minute thing, whereas maybe in the mornings and lunchtime's an hour. And people can often hang around for a little bit.
They can.
Do that thing. Some people do the double class.
Oof.
Like that's really, I used to do that a lot, like stick around for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, it lends itself to a different energy.
Definitely. But like you were saying, Joe, the thing which can fuck up the consistency, which is what we need, is your day blowing out.
Yeah.
Like you get a flat tire or your kid punches another kid at preschool and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to go in here and defend him.
Yeah.
Good on you, son. That was a great straight right. I love that. No, you can't say that in front of the kindy kids. But, it's true. And I knew this of my clients, my evening clients, like relevant to being a personal trainer. There was nearly always one session cancelled in the week.
Yeah.
Because of life.
Yeah. Work, drinks or some shit.
Well, even just, I had to go do something.
Yeah.
And it just means I just can't be there. And you're like, oh, God, it's a punish because if you're only training twice or 3 times a week, that's a huge, huge miss.
Yeah.
Even though there's so much going on when you get there, everyone's there, the technique's there, the rolling, the whole energy of the night training, I believe it's easier for people to skip a night class. That's my take on it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Way more stuff gets in the way. I've had that situation a couple of times recently where I've come to training with some water, but I haven't had any electrolytes, and I've finished training and I've had to go to a convenience shop and buy myself some kind of sports drink, usually a Gatorade. Cost me like $7. it's small, and it really doesn't contain that much of the good stuff that I'm looking for, which are the electrolytes. Sodi, on the other hand, is my partner when it comes to hydration, and I'd simply just run out of it. And it sucks because I got to go buy expensive stuff that doesn't do anywhere near as good a job. I'm super stoked that we've been restocked with the Sodi, and now I can be properly hydrated when I train jiu-jitsu. This has always been an underexplored aspect of my training, and I'm so stoked that we now have these guys in place to support us and also the listeners of the show. So if you want to be hydrated on the mats so that you can perform at your best and have the best mental clarity while training, get yourself some Sodi. Go to sodi.com.au. That's SODII.com.au. Get yourself some delicious hydration salts and use the code bulletproof15 for 15% off. Go to sodi.com.au. Get yourself hydrated. When I used to train evenings a lot, I would never go into the week with a pre-thought out schedule.
Right.
It wasn't like, yep, I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or it was just, I trained today.
Not yet.
I'll probably be back tomorrow, probably come the next day. But it gets very easy when you're in that loop to maybe you miss Monday and then you have a big day at work on Monday, Tuesday, and then you're like, it's Wednesday now. And you're like,
yeah,
got a big weekend coming up,
Sure.
And then all of a sudden you just didn't really train that week.
Yeah.
So I find takeaway there is try to have a schedule if you can that kind of anchors you. But the morning and the lunchtime people, they have their schedule.
Yeah.
Because it's usually tied to their work.
Yeah.
Or to their routine. And it's like, no, I go on this day at this time and that's when I get it in.
Structure is important.
Yeah.
And look, part of the reason why I kind of cut back on the night training was I just found it my sleep. I couldn't, I'm an obsessive person as well. Like if I maybe didn't get the better of a particular role and something happened, I would just ruminate. I found even if I would stretch after class, I was just flushed with all the stress hormones and just jiu-jitsu was in my brain. So even when I come home, have my shower, do whatever, before I go to sleep, I'd still be thinking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I just didn't rest well. My body, I would get out the shower, I'd still be sweating. Like, I don't know, I'm a hot-blooded human, but the change for me that I found worked exceptionally well. And now I understand that this is not available to everyone because of life. Doing a morning or doing a lunch and then maybe doing some weights later in the day, not necessarily nighttime, but like arvo-ish, 4 or 5 o'clock, like after work is done, meant once I was home, I was eating dinner, rest, digest. Like, I actually think there's a huge value in after about 6, 7 p.m. just not doing stressful things.
Yeah.
Like that's, and I understand that for most people it's very hard to do that. But what I wanted to put out there just off the back of this episode is if you haven't done a morning class, because it seems like it's too much messing about to go early, maybe if you just try it one time, you might go, oh, hang on, that was great. I got a lot from that actually.
Yeah, like the getting up early sucked, but there was all these other positives that came from it.
Yeah, and then maybe that means it doesn't mean you change your whole life, even though you should. No. But, just that one change, you think, oh, maybe one day a week I might do a morning class. Maybe a Friday I can start a bit later. Like I can start at 9 instead of 8 or something. So that way I can get a morning class in. And then you're like, oh, well, that actually just changed my whole day and my whole experience. Because me personally, even though I have found night classes to be awesome in terms of you get the most training partners, it's usually the hardest training. The technical information is in my opinion, the best. Man, night training, I would just be really...
You pay a price.
Yeah, there's a cost there.
Oh, yeah.
And so, how about you, Joe? Because you've done a variety of session times through the day. What is your preferred time now, do you think? So it's pros and cons all balanced.
I'm back. I'm coaching Advantage Monday night, so I'm rolling.
Yep.
And so I'm back in the night thing on Mondays, and it's fun. Like it's great getting to connect with all the team again. Haven't seen everyone for ages. People are coming for me, which is,
of course they are.
It's
part of the game. You see the wins, he's like,
yeah. Just thinking back to when Eric tapped me with a full Nelson.
Oh no,
a full Nelson from the back.
Oh,
this is big baseball bat. Club arms came in, and then all of a sudden my shoulders were just being separated from my neck, like from my torso. No. It was great. But
He's
yeah,
such a brute.
bro. But talking about big frames, right?
Yeah.
But so that's been really fun, and I've missed those guys. But my sleep is shit.
Yeah.
I was up till I think 10 past 11 on Monday because it was 10 o'clock. I'd finished cleaning the kitchen, and I'm like, normally I'd be in bed 20 minutes before that.
Yep.
But it's late, and I'm like, there's no chance I'm going to bed right now. So I sat down and watched TV for an hour, and that was great. I accepted the late bedtime, but it meant that when I went to sleep, I could sleep.
Right.
But that was really suboptimal for me because I'm usually in bed between 9:30 and 10, which means that I'm up between 5:30, 6.
Yeah.
So that one night threw out my whole kind of routine, which is not optimal.
Of course.
Look, for me these days, I really like the pros and cons, right?
Sure.
I love the lunchtime session. Lunchtime works great for me, and that's what I've been doing at Gracie Balmain.
Yep.
It's awesome. I got good energy. I know that I can train hard, and then I can have plenty of time to I can go back to work afterwards and chill out and all that. But it's not good for me when I have a lot of work and I'm trying to be productive, because to go and train at sort of 12:30 means that I'm already kind of like I gotta leave the house, just about 12. Got to start getting ready like 11:45. And then I'm not really back on the tools until 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
When you factor in 90 minutes of training plus a shower and shit, and then you're having lunch.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's actually a huge chunk of the middle of the day.
Massive. Yeah.
So I do find if I'm on a flow with getting work done, I'll just be like, nah.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Now, I'm in a bit of a sticky spot. I'm not so desperate that I got to make the mornings work.
Sure.
If that was getting chronically, if I was not getting the training in.
I would love to see it. Joey just comes to work and he's just a little jittery. And I'm like, oh, what's going on, man? You look a little bit flustered. He's like, I'm on my third coffee. And I'm like, oh, it's only 9 o'clock. Yeah. You haven't been meditating? What's going on, bro?
Yeah,
tables turns.
I could see myself doing mornings at a point.
Yeah.
Just
to fit it.
But for now, yeah, lunchtimes are great.
Yeah. And look, what informs the way I approach this whole thing, partly I've read it in Dr. Matthew Baker's book, Why We Sleep.
Matthew Walker.
Dr. Matthew Walker, apologize. He, thanks for listening. Sorry, I fucked up your name. Here's the thing, with circadian rhythms, whatever, when you look at people who are more prone to being awake earlier, being alert earlier, and people who are more prone to being alert later, people who are more the early risers, early birds, they do their best mental work in the morning. That's when they are at their most efficient. So that's me. For night owls, like my partner Ola, she does her best cognitive work kind of post 7 p.m.
Right.
She kind of has this second gear where she goes 7 p.m. All right, on the laptop, do it, and she's good till midnight.
Yeah.
Whereas me, once I get past about 1 p.m., 2 p.m., cognitively, I'm terrible. Physically, I can do a lot. I can still train, I can do a lot, but I'm not making good decisions after that time. So for me, in terms of how I balance my day, I prefer to get up ridiculous early, get it out by lunch, and then I'm kind of free.
Yeah.
Whether I'm lifting weights or I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I can choose how I dictate that. And I'm pretty lucky that my work allows me to do that. But yeah, you might be working a night shift. You might be working 2 jobs. So you're like, I'll just do jiu-jitsu whenever the bloody hell I can fit it.
Yeah.
And salute to folks like you. I met a gentleman on the last week who was that kind of a guy, 2 kids, 2 jobs, just doing it. I was like, how often are you training? He's like, man, sometimes it's once a week. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. He's like, sometimes I get 3 and I'm stoked. But he was a tough role. He's a strong, tough human. So he was just trying to get the most out of whatever he could fit in.
Yeah.
I think the great thing is now that most jiu-jitsu gyms will offer multiple time slots.
Yeah.
So there's more ways to get it in your life.
And different gyms will have different cultures around that, won't they? Like I was saying before, a Balmain morning crew is really fucking solid.
It's tough, yeah.
And you go to another gym and morning crew is it's a bit more relaxed. It's a bit lighter. Some gyms have that pro session, right? Where you got a bunch of killers coming in at 10 o'clock. I remember at Gracie they had the black belt training, which was 10:30. A couple of days a week. You're like, fuck, this is a really tough mat. So different gyms got different things going on. I think to your point earlier about say maybe the shorter classes like morning crew, lunch crew, they often miss out on that extra time to just kind of troubleshoot stuff.
Yep.
You could easily just put that in by going like, oh, hey, on the Thursday or the Friday session, we're just going to keep that as like a bit of an open mat kind of workshop thing. So come in with any problems you had from the week and let's discuss them there. And, you know, so rather than it being like an after each session, it's like, oh, on that session, we do that.
Yeah. The only drawback, and I love an open mat. I think open mat is a beautiful thing. People just leave. You know how typically people go, oh, okay, see, I've got to go, whatever. That's cool. But because there's no actual structure, people can kind of come when they want and they can kind of go when they want. And that is the beauty of the thing. But oftentimes the person you wanted to chat to or whatever, they might have just had to jet. And then you're like, oh, we were here, but then the moment is gone.
It's true.
Whereas with the structured class, it ends. And if
there's a container,
it stops.
Yeah.
And then we know that, hey, we've got 10 minutes before coach wants to clean the mats or whatever. And so that's when we can do the little powwow.
Is that a case you think for like having a little bit of a structure with open mats, being like, hey, starts here, finishes here, you know? So it's like you kind of letting people know, like, don't come and go as you please.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And what I had seen is that they would have a class of sorts. So not super strict, but after a certain point, it's open mat. And so, so there would already be a bit of technique
stuff and then open.
And then it's up to you, come and go as you please. But after that time, you know that maybe I can hang around or I can't.
Yeah.
And I think taking advantage of that little window post-training is a good time to get a bit of extra learning in, no matter what time of day you're doing it.
I like it. Hey, for you guys listening, we want to get this show out to as many folks like you as we can. And so there's one small favor we ask of you. Like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. It's going to take you about 30 seconds, but it goes a long way for us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.